what are the beliefs you have around hiring people? Like, you can't trust them. You're training your competition. Like,
it's hard.
they're unreliable. No one cares about my business like me, and all this stuff, right? And listen, I get it. Some of those have some legitimate value, but what's the option? What's the alternative? You just continue to do everything yourself? Like, how long is that going to last, right? And you're not going to have the life you want, most likely, if you are pulling all the levers in the business. Hey, what's up? Welcome to Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better. I am joined by Polish Peter, my co-host for today's excellent episode.
That's right. So here's my first thing I want to talk to you guys about this. Wojo, you're fired.
You can't fire me, though.
Oh, but I can in my own head. No, reason why I say we're fired because what are we talking about today?
We're not talking about firing people. We're talking about hiring people, man.
That's right. Well, listen, if you got to hire somebody, that's either somebody's been fired or you're actually looking to hire somebody. So this is an important conversation for us to have because I think a lot of people have a challenge on hiring people because there are all those beliefs, right, of all kinds of different things. So I think it's a good conversation to have about hiring.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. This is really important. And we're going to be concise with this, and we want this to be an actionable episode that you do something with. And so we're going to talk some real tactics and strategies. So the first thing you got to realize, like, if you're going to create a real business, it can't require you. A real business, by definition, at least the way I look at it, and I think of it is, you don't wear all the hats. And if you stop working, the business will stop working. And if you stop working, the business stops working, you don't have a business, you have a job. And so that means you need to hire people. You need to bring people on other than yourself that can help you carry that load, that can help you execute the mission of the business that does not require you. And so there's several steps to this. And we're gonna kind of do a crash course on it. And if you want more depth, come to the Business Builder Workshop. But you're gonna get some real good nuggets just from this. So let's talk about the first thing, Peter, which is, where do you find good people? This is a challenge for people. And listen, and I'm not going to negate today's climate, which has produced some challenges with finding people. There is, I believe, maybe a harmful conception that nobody wants to work. We make these judgments like nobody wants to work anymore and people are lazy. And listen, that's true for some people, but that's not going to serve you if you have that opinion about everybody. And that's what you're going to find. And so the first thing you got to do is get your mind right around this whole hiring and delegation process.
So I think that's a very important thing to talk about, and we don't have to dive into it, but why don't you guys consider this? Before you go into the hiring, the belief system that you have about the hiring process, about the employees, of who they are and all that kind of stuff, you got to get through that, set it aside, because otherwise it's not going to happen. Now, what are some of the beliefs that people deal with? Well, one is nobody can do it as good as me. I don't know if you ever have that. You can find good people. That's another belief that we see a lot. Another belief that we see a lot is, people are lazy, right? They don't do a good job, or they waste time, or whatever the case may be, right? Any other beliefs quickly that you kind of see in Wojo that we can just pop in there so people can see?
Yeah, man. Well, I'd even encourage the listener to think, like, what are the beliefs you have around hiring people? Like, you can't trust them. You're training your competition. Like,
it's hard.
They're unreliable. No one cares about my business like me, and all this stuff, right? And listen, I get it. Some of those have some legitimate value, but what's the option? What's the alternative? You just continue to do everything yourself? Like, how long is that going to last, right? And you're not going to have the life you want, most likely, if you are pulling all the levers in the business, simply because there's just not enough time for you to do both. And so what you're really doing when you hire people is you're freeing up your own time. And I think it's a mistake. Here's one huge mistake that people make, is they think that just because they're good at doing it, that they're good at all these other steps and bringing somebody else on. So and I don't say this to discourage you, but you got to realize you got to develop these steps. Like, you got to develop the skill to find the person. You got to develop the skill to screen that person and interview them. You got to develop the skills to onboard them and to train them, to lead them, and people just think that people automatically blame a bad experience with an employee on the employee, when in fact, listen, I'm your friend, but it's probably your fault.
Yep. And a few things that I want to take away from this particular conversation that you just mentioned is this. One, you said, because I know how to do it well, right? Just because you know how to do something well doesn't mean that you have to be the one doing it, especially when you're growing a company, you're a CEO, doing things like that, right? So you have to offload to other people. Next thing that I heard you say too is that, see, it just flew out of my head. So that will come back at some point. But
All right.
listen, the point of the thing is, it's sometimes, see, it came back. Look how quickly it came back. Look at that. It's like a little birdie. Just flew right back into my mind. All right. So here's the thing. Notice, by the way, I am disclaimer. I did not have any coffee, any caffeine before this particular podcast. I'm just on the roll.
And we didn't speed up the recording of this. Like this is
and
real
we
time.
didn't, right? So if somebody speeds it up to 1.5, I don't know if they're going to understand anything I say because it'd be one big gibberish thing. But here's the thing. A lot of times people have these beliefs that just comes out of one employee or 1 or 2 interactions in their business. And most of the time it happened way back in the day or recently to a point where you will not have the skill set to be actually know how to hire properly. And that's what we're talking about here
Well,
today.
dude, and think of it this way. Like when you're a kid, did you fall down once or twice or 5 times and be like, okay, this walking thing isn't for me? No, you'd keep going. And it's the same with people. You get better at it. And let me tell you this. I don't care how long you've been in business, you still will make mistakes. You still will make wrong hires, and you just got to go with it. And you hope and you develop the skills so that that hope actually turns into a high probability that you get better at it. And those mistakes are going to be less and less frequent and less catastrophic. And so that's the first thing. This is the first thing. I have a little bit of a contrary view on this. I believe that most people, my experience has shown me that most people that are good employees already have jobs. And so I think many times we make a mistake by only looking for people that aren't working and by posting on places like, now, by the way, I'll tell you this, like Life and Air just made a new hire. We posted, and here was our plan. We're going to post it to our Facebook group first. And then from there, we're going to post it on Indeed. And then we're also going to encourage our current employees and coaches to share it on their profile. We didn't even get that far. Within 2 hours of our social media posts, we shut it off because we already had what we considered to be a viable candidate that we wanted to go with after screening the applications. And so we didn't even need that. But what I'm saying here is in that case, we found them online. But if you open your eyes to your surroundings when you're out in public, whether it's at the restaurant, whether you're in line at the grocery store, at the bank, the fast food drive-in, which I know you never go to because you never eat that food, but anywhere, look for the people that seem to be really good at what they do. When that server comes over to your table and they don't write down those 20 items for the 15 people that you have at your table, and they get it all right, and they do it with a smile, and they refill your water, that may be somebody who you want to get their information for.
Yep, exactly, man. I've had those experiences. We were at one time dinner, like the whole group retreat. Yeah. There was like 30 people, and she just did it all by herself. I mean, it's incredible. So those are the types of people that you want to look for. I have a question for you, just out of my curiosity. Is there a reason why you went to Facebook page first?
Yeah, because for us, it was because like I wanted someone who already knew what Life and Air was. And so this, for me, instead of going to a cold audience, for instance, if we go to Indeed, this was somebody who already knew what we're up to. And by the way, it went to our private Facebook page, which means you're more than our general public page, because you could like the public page and maybe have a clue what Life and Air does, but this is a little bit more involved. It's a little more personal. And so that's why I did that because I want somebody who believes in our mission, and that's the first step.
Right. And knows something about. So you went to your own backyard first, kind of a thing. And I think that's a very important aspect to this whole hiring process, because most of us don't do that, right? And interestingly enough, the hire basically came out of someone that referred you to someone who they already knew. Right.
Well, and let me pause there, man, too, because this actually, it wasn't the person themselves that saw it on the website. It was a referral from that person. And so that's another thing that I love, man, is like finding people that know people. And that you're not, and especially if you find somebody who you really trust and you have a relationship with, and they refer you to someone that I don't like, when I refer somebody, I don't take that lightly, because that's my name. That's my reputation too. And so when you find somebody you trust and they recommend somebody, you don't take it for granted. Like you don't blindly like hire this person, but it's a good leading indicator that this could be somebody that you want to investigate further.
Right. So here is a quick little sentence that you can learn, beat it into your head as you're listening to this. and ask yourself when you're looking to hiring somebody, who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? And you start having those kinds of conversations with people that you know in your life. Who do you know? All right. So what's the next thing?
So the next thing for me, man, is like, so what you got to do is come up with a process for handling these applications. So for instance, what we did, just talking real technical stuff here, is we created a sub alias email with it. We used Google Workspace. And so we had a sub alias email for careers@lifeinner.com. That's the address we used. And we had people
So hold on, just for my own Polish brain, you're saying sub-alias means like you fake like an email just for hiring.
Right. It's only for hiring, because I didn't want to get that confused with our like support email or anything like that. Right. So, and so what I did is we have a process in Life in Here. So you write your job description, and by the way, we didn't even talk about job description. We could spend an hour on this, but you want to do a good job when you make that post. So what I did is I posted a link to our job description. Now, our job description was simply a Google Doc. We didn't get fancy. It wasn't a PDF, nothing you had to download. It wasn't a website. It was a Google Doc. And so when you do that, you want to do things like convey the mission of your company, the culture, the expectations, be very clear on what the job description and position includes. Talk about who this successful person will likely be and who that person won't be. Like if you're this, you're not going to like this job. You're not going to succeed. Yeah. And so do that as well. And I include screening into that process. Like, so for instance, if you're looking for somebody detail oriented, I deliberately made that, like in the position we just hired, we needed somebody detail oriented. And so I made the job description very long on purpose. And I included a couple hoops in there. I said, so send us your, resume and your PDF, your resume and your cover letter in PDF format, and put a little smiley face in the subject line. So guess what? If we got an email without a smiley face, delete. They just screen themselves out. They show me they didn't pay attention. If they send it to me in a Word doc, delete. They didn't send it to my specifications, right? So your screening begins with the job posting.
Right. It's interesting you said that, because when I was hiring an assistant, for me to be able to go and help me with like putting different posts out and things like that. And I know that, and this may come as a shock to you, Wojo, my English isn't 100% kind of a thing, right? I know. No Where's your shock face? Come on, let me see your shock face. What? See? All right. Exactly. Right. So I know that part when I was talking who you need to be, right? That you're going to be proofreading my stuff or whatever the case may be before it goes out there, things like that. I literally actually made mistakes on purpose to see if they catch the mistakes. Sure, and I had the applicants, I swear, dude, on purpose, I put this out there, right? But the thing is, that's the kind of stuff that you want to put in. You got to be very specific who you don't want, And you mentioned that. And I think that's a big part that a lot of people don't put into their ads out there, is they don't put like, who do I don't want? And you actually want to put in there who you are going to be working for. What kind of a person am I that you're going to be working for? Or the company, like the mission you send, things like that.
Right.
And you got those hoops that you have to have them jump through.
Yeah.
Why do we have those hoops in there?
What's that?
Why do we have those hoops in there for people to jump through? Because if you have 100 applicants.
Right. I just said them. So we're screening for it, right?
Yeah. You're going to get buried in 100 applicants, right? You just want to talk to the top 3-5 people.
Hey guys, we'll get right back to our episode, but there's something really important I want to tell you about, and that is this. You don't have to choose between having a great life and a great business. You can have both. We have 2 different events, in fact, to help you do just that. Our Get a Life Getaway is our proven process. We've been doing this for just about 15 years now of walking you through the process of creating your own personal life vision, your life inner vision for the ideal life that you want to live. And by the way, this isn't pie in the sky approach to living. This is a tangible, strategic way to really figure out exactly what you have to do and what things have to be in place for you to live that vision, and so that you can make this a reality. Now, the second part of that component is, the second part of the formula is the Business Builder Workshop. So this is where now finally you can have a business that doesn't absolutely destroy your life, and you can make the money you want in the amount of time you want. You can have fun. It can fulfill vision element items. You can remove yourself from the day-to-day and the minutia, so you're only doing the things that are most enjoyable to you and that you're best at, right? Can you imagine what that'd be like to get to enjoy and wake up every day loving what you get to do in your business and making money hand over fist? Like, that's just an amazing combination. So I want to encourage you, to go to the Get a Life Getaway and the Business Builder Workshop, because they're really a 1-2 punch combination to help you get the ideal life and business that you dream about. Now, here's the even cooler part, Peter. We have a very special promo for them. Tell them about that.
Well, because you guys are a loyal listener, because you're listening to our podcast and listening to my English and his English all the time, here's what we have for you guys. Head over to lifeontheart.com, click on the events tab at the top of the page, pick the event that you want to go to the checkout page, and in the promo code area, type in podcast, 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 hit apply, and guess what you're going to get? You're going to get 50% off. That's 50% of the ticket price, the regular ticket price, that majority of the people out there who don't listen to our podcast don't know about it yet, get to pay, but you get to pay only 50% off. So head over there right now, get to this event, and I can't wait to meet you. Come up to us, say hi to us, introduce yourself, tell us you found us on the podcast. We would love to talk to you and show you how this vision process really creates miracles in people's lives.
Man, one last thing is, I don't know when you're listening to this episode right now, but I don't know how long we're going to keep this discount up. I don't know how long this promotion will be valid. So go and do it right now to make sure you get that 50% savings. We'll see you at an event soon. Let's get back to the episode. Now we have these applications. Now what's the next step? So now you are accepting and by the way, what I typically ask for is I'm looking for an updated resume. I'm looking for a cover letter, and I have a few questions in there, basically along the lines of like, hey, what do you know about Life in Air? Why do you want this job? What makes you great for this position? There's more depth to it, but that's kind of the gist of it. And then I also have them submit a video, just a short 3 to 5 minute video talking about, why they want the job and why they're a great fit, and maybe even something they're passionate about. So here's the reason I do that. And the videos themselves are so revealing, man. Like, it conveys so much more than words. And so the reason I have those 3 questions in there, why do you want the job? Why would be a great fit, and something you're passionate about? When they talk about that thing that they're passionate about, I want to see the same passion when they tell me why they want this job. And if I don't, that's not a fit. Like, I want somebody who's passionate. So I'm testing, see what we're doing here? Like, and so you gotta be clever with this. And like, man, one woman, I'll never forget this. We had one woman once who applied, and she's like, she starts out the video with this. She's like, I can't believe
I remember that video.
I have to do this dumb video for you guys. Okay. And I'm like, okay. I didn't get it. Here's
You're
another
hired.
example. Yeah, I know. Right. And so like, I'm also testing them to see if they know how to upload this thing. Right. So I'm testing some technical capabilities as well. Like, it's all a test. Right. And so you only want the right people on your team. And so you got to be really kind of diligent in taking these steps. So then from there, our round one is basically like, hey, who's our top candidates? We will, and by the way, if you don't never ever hire somebody because it's the best of what's available. Like, well, I guess this is the best we have. Like, no, start the process over again. Don't start again, go somewhere else. Do not hire somebody just because it's relatively the best speaking. You got to find somebody who's awesome. Now, I love Jeff Bezos's approach of the 50% better, which is a policy at Amazon, which is, hey, for you to get hired, you have to be 50% better than whoever is already there. And this is how they continually increase the quality of their people. Now, that's pretty audacious and ambitious, but but you really don't want people that are just okay. You want people that are awesome. And by the way, let me just side note here, you got to pay for that. Like, you're not going to get the best talent for bottom dollar. It's worth it to pay them extra, pay them 10, 20, 30% extra, because you will get 1.5 or twice the output. So you got to get the best people.
And I think one of the reasons why people have a trouble with that, because they look at the employees as an expense as opposed to an investment.
Right.
They're an investment to your company, right? And when you look at it from that perspective, it's an asset to your company. It's an investment. It's going to start producing you more money. You are more willing to go and spend that money on that.
That's right. Right. So now one question I get a lot, man, is like, hey, should I check their social media? To which I'll say, you got to be careful with that. You can check social media, but legally you have to hold everybody to the same standards of the not fair housing, but like the employment laws. So if you're going to do that, you got to treat everybody the same. Like, so you got to be very careful with that. But is this person, if someone's putting up stuff and they're partying and and all this stuff on the weekends, is that somebody that matches your culture or not? You decide.
Right.
And then let's say people get past that. The next round for us is round 2. What we're doing here is we're asking for references, personal and professional. And when we have a set of questions, we ask the references. We have a guide for that. And we also are, to some extent, you're also going to verify a couple of pieces on that resume to make sure it's accurate, right? This is a test for truthfulness. Did they exaggerate? Did they fluff? This is where we start the interview process. Now, what we do is we do single interviews with each of our staff members. So you're going through several people before you get to me. Like, I'm the final interviewer, but you're gonna have several interviews, and we're looking for consistency. We're looking for things that maybe if you and I saw something different, we interview them. Well, we got to get to the bottom of that. There's something there we got to discuss. And so we do those, and those typically, those are 15 to 30 minutes or nothing extensive, but that's that round 2.
Yep. And I think that's a really good strategy to actually help to weed out some of these people and be able to, because here's the thing. The person who you are interviewing are going to most likely interact differently with someone who, let's say, is an employee of a company versus a CEO of a company. They're going to show up differently if they're trying to, put the best foot forward in an interview. So those kinds of conversations are helping you to see how the person shows up, whether they're just playing or they're real, authentic. Here's the thing. It's one of the hardest things to in the interview process to figure out if the person is authentic, what's the real authentic self. And when you start doing that, I think it's a much better chance of you to figure out how authentic this person is. You know what I mean?
Man, so Dave Ramsey, I attended one of his trainings, and he said that he had something like 14 steps in his application process. Mm-hmm. And one of which was to bring that person and their spouse out to an informal dinner. Now, this is towards the end of the interview process. He's not doing this to everybody. This is like right before they hire him. And he said, like, you really want to see, to your point, you want to see somebody outside of a formal Zoom meeting where they are on their best behavior. And you want, now, I don't know how he does this, but he basically says, like, if their spouse is nuts, that's a problem, because guess what? That's going to leak into your business. That will affect their performance at work. And so, like, he was actually screening both of them. So we don't do that. But that is something to consider. The other thing,
how did your wife get hired into her company? I mean, her spouse is
because of me, bro. Because what? Jason Wojo is your husband?
Yeah, okay.
Or something like that.
Notice for all the listeners, there is a big ego. Look at the head growing right now. It's growing big over there.
So, but here, one thing we changed recently with this last round is we used to do group interviews, but I thought about it a little more, and I think it was a little too intimidating and not fair to the prospect, because, like, it's almost like a firing squad. Like, all these people are there. It's just you and then all the other people. Like, so we decided to go one-on-one. So from there, now we're having them, like, they get past that. And now for round 3, we're having them do things like take the DISC test or the predictive index or the Colby A, where we're trying to get a real grasp on some of the nuts and bolts of things. One other thing to consider earlier on, and this depends on the position as well, is some sort of test of their skill. Like, so if you're hiring a coder, what I'd probably recommend sooner rather than later, don't wait till the end of the application process for this, is like have them write a piece of code and see how they do. And now pay them for it. If it takes them an hour, pay them, for that hour. But, I probably wouldn't do that at the first step, but maybe at the second step or so. Or if you're hiring a designer, hey, design me this page and pay them for it, but see how it comes out. And maybe you do that with 3 or 4 people, and that gives you a very real assessment on how their skills align with the position you're advertising for, that you're marketing. And so some sort of skill-based thing is good in there. Like, one time we were hiring somebody who we needed a lot of writing. And so we had them read the Life in Air book and then do a book report, essentially a 2-page, 3-page book report on it, and your biggest takeaways. And we, evaluated the style of that writing, and how clear was it? How cohesive was it? Convincing? Like, all these kinds of things. And so consider that as well. And then the last thing really is the formalities, which is, like, let's say you get that final person you guys are, and here's one other suggestion. This is a mistake we made early on, is originally we didn't put the salary range in the job description. And I think that kind of, the reason we did it is because we didn't want somebody just to apply for the money. But looking back, and we changed it this time, we do put that salary range in the position listing now. And the reason for that is like, man, have you ever done this, like where maybe you want to buy a course or go to a class or a training, and it makes you click through like 5 pages before you find the price of the event? And I'm like, that always irritated me. Mm-hmm. Number one. And number two, what if someone gets towards the end of this application and the amount of money that you can pay is less than they need to make? You just wasted a whole lot of everyone's time. So let them know up front what that range is, so that you're only going to get people that can be qualified for that and that can afford to work for you, because someone may have way bigger needs, or frankly, maybe it's going to attract the right person because you're overpaying for the market rate, and that's going to attract better candidates. And so putting that up front, I think that's also a change that we've made as well. So, and by the way, if we were doing this episode in 3 years, I might be telling you something completely differently. All I can tell you is what we're doing and what's worked so far and the changes, because like I said, this is a process. You're going to get better at it just as we are as well.
Yep. And I think when you start, it's just like everything else. This just takes practice. You start doing this, you start looking at people, like reading their body language, right? And see how they interact. Like you mentioned about the video, right? You see the passion and how they are. And when you go out, let's say to a restaurant, you see how they treat their waitresses, right? And things like that. And you're going to start to see whether or not this person is aligning with the mission, with the company, because you do not want to hire somebody who is going to be, quote unquote, like a poison within your company. Yeah. And when that happens, you want to let them go as fast as possible, kind of a thing. But it is one of those things. I think skill is important to hire, but I think more important than skill is the character. And when you start looking at hiring people. And
so we're not going to talk about like onboarding and training and all that kind of stuff, but let's kind of just finish up with a couple of important points here, just on this hiring process. Like what you said is really important. So when I hire, I'm looking at character and integrity, number one, competency and results, number two. Like skills can be trained, to your point, but and quite frankly, maybe integrity can be trained too, maybe it can't, but I need to be able to trust this person. I'm looking for people that are humble, that are hungry, that are driven, that believe in what we're doing. And quite frankly, like one of the important things when you write that job description and you have these interviews, be really transparent. Don't tell them like it's a dream. It's a dream vacation to work for us, and then they get in there and it's like a grind, and you're like cracking the whip on them constantly. And like be open and truthful, because you're wasting everyone's time if they leave. And so be really transparent with what the community is like. And if there's problems, tell them about it. Like say, hey, here's some challenges we're currently facing, just so you're aware what you're getting yourself into. Like, so be really clear with that. Also be very, very clear with expectations. Like what is winning look like? And I really encourage people to have a sense of their values of their company and their team, and create a culture of accountability and performance and support. And like, so these can be really important to hiring and keeping the right people. Right. So hopefully this was a great episode, that you guys enjoyed this particular episode. If you have any questions, I would love for you guys to either come back to the Facebook page, Life on our Facebook page, and get yourself in there and ask those questions. We are here to support you, or just comment on wherever you see this podcast episode. Or reach out to us here at Life on Air, because we would love to see how we can help you, support you, because I think when you do that, great things happen. So, any last thoughts, Wojo? Nope. If you liked it, and by the way, just hope you got something out of this. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and we'll see you next week, guys. Take care.